So for this video, I'm actually going to go over the instructions for the project work that we're going to be doing as part of our attendance, and just in general what you would want to see in the output. So what I have open is I have open the instruction file right here. I have open live server here. And so let's start by looking at, in this case, what you need to do, right? So I talked about this a little in attendance. So we'll first talk about where you start your folder and file structures. So in this case, in your private repo, way important, right? Create the following structure. So off of your again, if you're on CodeSpace, then this is in your private repo. If you're on local, then this is, if you've opened the base folder, then you go into your private repo. So let me just show you, and here are the folders you're going to end up creating. So for me, right, here I am at my, now I have opened my private repo, and again, I talked about last time in attendance, like when you open those, that will also set your root. So for in this, and the reason I did it here is just to have less to look at. So in projects, so let me just make it a little bigger so you can see it. Then I have image, imj, and then I have P1. So for phase 1, and then we'll have a P2, and so on and so forth, right? And so in there, I then have created my files. So we'll come back to look at this in a minute, but I'm just going to show you first that, and I am very particular about when I say give me a folder with this name, no uppercase, no spaces, file names, the same concept, okay? All right, so set that up, and then create a README file in that P1, and that's where your HTML documents will go. And then in IMG, this will store all the images throughout the different phases of the project that you're going to do. Okay, so have that set up, and then in your README file, and this is important. So you're going to choose a topic for your site. It's really up to you to choose this. I don't dictate. Really choose something that's fun for you. You are going to use Markdown in this case. We've been using it for your notes. If you need the syntax shortcuts, they're definitely out there. So here's what you want in your README file, right? What is the topic of your project? Now, in this case, you're going to create a multiple page responsive website. You're going to write, first determine what your project is. So in my case, right, if I'm here, I actually, and I could show you this, and I'll talk about this in a minute, I could look at it in the editor. Here's my README file, right? I could also look at it in the browser just for our purposes. Now, this is select the topic, right? Why I decided to do it, my outline, and then my menu. So let's talk about what those things need to include, right? The topic, why you chose it, right? And then you can use, in this case, you don't have to, but you can use content creation through AI prompting. I don't tell you which tool to use, it's really up to you, but based on your topic, you know, come up with prompts to create content. And then in your README file, include a sample of some of those prompts that you used, and then think about a menu, right? So again, if you look at mine here, I said home, genres, top screen, screams. And actually, this is a previous student. I asked if I could use some of their work because they did such a great job. Easter eggs, tropes, and then now in this case, the student had put the about and the contact us. Those you don't want to do because we're going to do those for later. They will become part of your menu, but for this part of the project, don't include them. And actually, I talk about that in the attendance. Actually, I didn't put that here, maybe. Oh yeah, so actually that's here. So now so once you get all those set up, then you do a commit message, readme.md complete, right? And then you're ready to go on to the next one. Now, it's not to say you can't come back here and actually do some refinement to this. That's okay, but at least have majority of that stuff in here. And like I said, list your menu text. So this is like the menu you think you're going to use. So just to give you an example, here's an example of the menu, right? So and we're going to learn over time, of course, how to style these, how to make them look differently. And that's an important part. But right now you're just going to come up with, now this is the final product, but in your readme file what you think those are going to be. So now create in your P1 your index file. Make sure you've put header, nav, section, article, and foot somewhere in there. This is where you get to organize your content the way you want. But you do need, of course, your main and your nav, and then these will be based on the way you're going to organize your content, which I'll talk about in a minute, and I'll give you examples of. And then include an order or an unordered list, and either one of these and a table. So you have to have this. Now your index ends up becoming your largest content file, and then your other pages could have less content on them. Do not use divs. I do count off for that because the idea of what you're learning is not to use them. Okay, now this is all stuff we covered, you got exposed to in week 3. Now you have to choose in the writing of this index file at least 3 of these, right? We saw details, summary, time, mark, site, and address. So at least 3 of those on your index as well. And then here are your other requirements. And actually, let me just show you the example, right? So if I was to come over here on inspect, I could see my header, right? So of course the headers are way important. Here's my nav. Right, here's my unordered list, and then I have, in this case, so that's all up in my header, and then I have my articles, right, and then I have the end of main, and then under the articles I then have them broken down into the images themselves, we'll talk about in a minute, and then I have sections as well. Okay, so I'm trying to think where it's dug down in there a little bit. I'll have to find it in a minute where there's examples of the other ones. But, right, the idea is that you want to somewhere put these in there, the details, the summary, the time. So select 3 of them. And then add a footer, right, to the page. So in this case, we're just talking about the index, right? So if I scroll all the way down, right? So here's your footer. Tell us which do AI resources, right? And then you can do the back to the top. Now this was site information. This is actually what we're going to cover in a minute, but it's there. Again, remembering to these are anchor links, but when you're doing your page links, as I just talked about earlier, making sure those are actually rendering to the right location. Okay. So, all right, now this is a way important part because this is part of how I'm actually going to, you're going to prove you got the outline right, and Dave talks about this, and you can use whichever tool you want. I'll show you the one I'm going to use, and you'll take a print screen for your attendance. But here's the key, is you want proper HTML outlining, right? You're going to start with an H1, and then you're going to go 5 to 6 levels deep, and you'll see an example in a minute with at least 1 or 2 sub-levels on each, and you avoid untitled levels. Now, in this case, that means you have to have everything with some kind of heading to denote that, but what we will learn in future Dave sessions are how to actually include them but not have them on the rendered page. And then update your meta tags with the title, validate your HTML, and then do a commit. So let's look at the last part of this. Let me go back here. Now I'm here at the home, and so if I could drop this for a second, I'm going to make my size a little bigger so you can see this. I have included that extension that actually is built into Chrome, which I like, and that I talked about last time. But if I click here, then this is the outline of my page. This is my H1, right? Here's my menu. So you can see I have 6 outlines here, and then within here I have a couple of subtopics. And this is where you want to start understanding how to organize your page, making sure there's no untitled here, and if there are, it's generally that you don't have a heading. But this is part of how I'm going to grade, but also this is the importance of understanding and creating that content for every page, but specifically in this case for the index page. Okay, so I'll come back and take a print screen and show you how to put it in the discussion in a minute, but know that's part of how you're going to show your work for this one. Okay, and now here's where I've given you the option for the attendance to only create one additional page, right? So you take off and look at one of these. The home, of course, is already, that's a link to itself for the index. But in this case, let's say I created, oh, very nice. Now I got to actually fix that. Let me go fix that real quick and see what I did with that. So on my index page, so this is all good because you start to see it should have been fine. It's linked to that same P1. So what I could look at here, all right, I don't see, nothing's jumping out at me. So, oh, I must have, yeah, okay, actually I must have had my, and this could happen, is my live server. I've been playing around and going between folders. So if ever you get to a place where now it works, that something in your live server seems to be broken, just stop it and restart it. So in this case, it does work, right? So here's that sub page that returns to the home page. And this is where doing a bit of work to set up that menu can save you some time later, right? But in this case, I just want you to have, in this case, in the index, and then on at least one page so that they work together. And then you can include the rest of the menu you think you're going to create, right? Okay, so in this case, and this is important, like, and I say this about everything, but file names, right? And it should be folder names. I could modify that as well, lowercase, no spaces, right? And you follow the same requirements basically, but you don't have to have as much content, right? So maybe not 5 to 6 levels. So I should kind of give you a little more context here, but I'm just telling you, right? The same structure requirements, making sure your HTML outliner is that doesn't have untitles and it meets, it's valid in all the other things, right? So each page 3 to 4. So that's where I actually specified it under your H1, and it includes 2 sub levels, right? And you can copy over your index meta tag for the title, and in this case you're going to include in a unique title and description. And I realized in saying this that I didn't actually have that up on the index, so I'll modify this as well, validate it. Include a link back, right? And then commit this. So this, at this point, is all you need to do for the attendance, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to look over the rest of these instructions, and actually I will have you in the attendance post here ask any questions, so you could ask anything about what I've already covered, or you could review something in the future, because I still, of course, by the time we get to week 6 you'll end up doing all of these steps, but I'm just getting you started on working on the project this week. And then I talk about how it's graded, no CSS, just a quick overview here. You'll create a site.html, you'll have images you'll create, right? Follow the standards we followed with Dave, wrap them in Fig and Fig caption, and I give you an example. Okay, so at this point, now back to here. So I've gone over at least a high level of steps 1, 2, and 3 for the project. In your reply here, you don't have to actually give me any commits, because people, remember this when you're doing, because we're doing all this work in the private, you wouldn't see them, but you will end up doing a print screen next, right? But just doing this work and doing what I required and what I've gone over, this is 50 points of this attendance post. Now, what you're going to do here is once you have that done and you're actually ready to work on your attendance post, what you're going to do, and that's kind of what I showed here, where I have my plugin for Chrome. Now, Dave actually shows another site, and there are definitely others out there. If you need a list, just go search for HTML5 outliners, and you'll find them to where you could actually place your page up there and create that. For me, I only need to do one print screen because I want to see both what does the page look like and then what does the HTML outliner look like. That's why I like to use it, because I can do one and the same. But if you happen to not want to install a Chrome extension, that's cool. Just know that you'll probably have to do two print screens because I want to see either them together or separate. Okay. Now, when you take that print screen, right? And again, this is a different approach, maybe two of these. Then you would resize that to 500 whatever, right? That depends on your screen resolution, but no more than 500 pixels. And then place this, and here's the key. Now we're actually moving into, right, how we're going to do the post here away from what we've done for the project. And you'll place these in your public repo, right, in your images folder. And now I'm going to show you how to actually integrate them into the post here or into the discussion. But you will then so if I was to move back to my VS Code, I'm in my private. So what I'd have to do is go back to maybe my base folder, right? And then I would look at my pub. Oh yeah, I have it in there. Oh yeah, I see actually I've already done that. I've placed that print screen there. I've already resized it. And matter of fact, I can already see, and I could go, and I even give you a commit I want there. So if I go to 85, I go to repos, and I go to public, I can see that in my images folder, I now have a new folder that is outliner. Now, I haven't told you a name for this, but as long as it meets the naming standards, you're fine. So you can see that image here, right? All right, so now I'm going to show you how to put it in the discussion, but you'll complete that part of it on your public repo with that commit message. And so this is 20 points, doing this part of it, right, to show. And then step 3 is you're going to reply, right? So you're going to do a reply here, right? You're going to question or comments, and this is using this when I gave the instruction in Canvas, it actually rendered as a H3, and I showed you this last time. So we could do questions or comment on the project stuff that we did. So in this case, I'm going to do heading 3, right? Goes here, question or comment. And now what I'm going to show you is how to embed that print screen, because the thing you'll see is in my course, you never want to attach, because part of what we are learning is how to externally reference things, okay? How to give an external reference. So in this case, I'm going to come back over to my public. I'm going to right click. And there's a couple ways I could do this. One thing I like to do is open in a new tab, and that gives me just the image itself. And one thing I can do is just come up here to the URL, copy that. Notice this is a different URL. It's what we call a raw get content. So it's generally a little better when we're actually embedding into the discussion or any external link itself. So if I come down here, what's cool is I can go over to in here on our WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get. But I'm also going to show you the code itself. And we're going to say upload. And this could be confusing. So it's like, what do you mean upload? We're not uploading, but we're actually, in this case, going to give it a URL reference. And we could paste that. Now, it's going to embed the image, right? But we could have just written the code. But for today, I want to just at least show you some of the benefits and the downsides of what we call WYSIWYG, because it's going to do it for me. Oh, sorry, my bad. Actually, I should have went here. And I would say my project 0. And you want to keep these, right? Dave talked about the importance of these and what they're used for. So I might just say HTML outliner, HTML5 outliner image. Okay. And then once I have the file in there, I have some content, I hit submit. that places it in as a external reference into the discussion. I could come down to the HTML. And now in the future, rather than to have to use the WYSIWYG, I know how to write this tag. It's easy. I know how to do it, right? Okay, so in that case, let me just go back. And again, this is a toggle, right? This shows you the full screen. This will bring it back down to just inside the page itself. And in this case, embed it, right? So now, and then you will find a classmate. So I will go ahead in this case just to show you in what this looks like, right? So here's the example that I just did. The way I will grade this particular one, right, for 10 points. Actually, no, it's the question or comment. Oh, I need to play with this just a little bit. So review this when you get in here, but you're going to find a classmate and reply for 10 points. Actually, this would be, anyway, I will have that worked out once you get here. Okay, I hope this helps you see what you need to do, how you're getting into the project work, gives you a chance to look at those instructions, get started on your project, and then show in the response what your HTML outliner and therefore in your page, right? By the way, you also want to make sure that's valid. I will also pull your code and validate it as well. And I believe that was one of the steps in the instruction. Okay, hope this helps you. Reach out for questions if you have any.